Leaders of Germany and Poland have agreed on an action plan to strengthen one of Europe's most important partnerships. Relations between Berlin and Warsaw have been strained for the past 6 years. When the Polish right-wing nationalist Law and Justice Party was in power, its leaders regularly painted Germany as a hostile force. But a recent change in government in Warsaw has now raised hopes for closer cooperation.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz back in Warsaw. He and his ministers, guests of honour in the Polish capital. Given a welcome that set the tone for a new chapter in the German-Polish alliance and aims to heal the rifts that have grown in recent years.
We have a very clear message. Germany and Poland are good neighbours, close partners and reliable friends.
Not always. The last time they held intergovernmental meetings like this one was in 2018, when Angela Merkel was in office. That's because ties soured after Poland's nationalist Law and Justice Party won re-election in 2019 on the back of increasingly anti-German rhetoric. Warsaw then stepped up demands for World War II reparations. But the Liberal leader Donald Tusk's return to office in December offered a chance for a fresh start. Starting today with a promise that will see Germany build a memorial to Polish victims of the Nazis. And Scholz pledged to compensate victims, but would not offer exact details.
Germany recognises the gravity of its guilt, its responsibility for the millions of victims of the German occupation and the mission that arises from it. Germany will therefore also endeavour to take measures to support the surviving victims of the German attack and occupation between 1939 and 1945. There are no gestures that will be really satisfying for the Polish. There is nothing that could compensate for what happened in World War II.
Polish and German defence ministers also met and agreed to boost military cooperation in light of Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine. Tusk welcomed Germany's move to commit more support to its neighbours' security.
Germany is prepared to take on more responsibility for the security of the continent, that there will be no war here and in Europe. These are all steps in the right direction.
Before they called it a day, the two cabinets smiled for the traditional family photo and will no doubt be hoping it's not another 6 years before the next one.
More on this, let's bring in our chief political editor, Michaela Kufner. Michaela, how are Chancellor Scholz and Prime Minister Tusk planning to improve cooperation between Germany and Poland?
Well, the short answer is a lot of bilateral working groups. That press conference between the two is just drawing to a close with questions there. And following this meeting with a dozen German ministers and a dozen Polish ministers on the other side, this bilateral cabinet meeting, they published something called the German-Polish Action Plan, 40 pages of mainly announcements of what will happen in the future, of better cooperation. This sounds like something that should be a given between the two countries, but after the peace government pretty much ran an anti-Europe and particularly anti-Germany course, this is a tangible sign that under Donald Tusk, the very European-friendly former president of the European Council, this is a new era of German-Polish relations, but I have to say with very little concrete outcome to show. And this begins with the first chapter on the historical context, and that points to what Donald Tusk is up against if he wants to cooperate with Germany in the future. A lot of sentiment, a very broad sentiment in Polish society that Germany still owes Poland big time. That's why reparations was once again a topic. But to stay with what the concrete outcome is, bilateral working groups on things ranging from the environment to that eastern flank that Poland represents within NATO towards Russia. The two countries want to work together before they put proposals on the table within NATO.
Now, Poland borders Ukraine, of course, and the war in Ukraine is a key point in discussions between the German and Polish leaders, I understand. What have you heard from Scholz and Tusk on that point?
Well, that's where both countries really completely see eye to eye in terms of backing up Ukraine for as long as it takes. That's what both have said. The Polish side, of course, having in the past been the one of warning of Russian aggression, something that was not heard by the past government here in Germany, where Olaf Scholz was already the vice-chancellor. Now, here, this really, the joint paper also reads like a list of pressure points ranging from Ukraine, where both reiterate that they will continue to back Ukraine, with, of course, Germany ruling out sending that cruise missile system that Ukraine so badly wants. Taurus is the name. At the same time, there's mention of Belarus also being a huge concern, particularly also for Poland. But again, we won't see Germany and Poland have separate takes on that. They vow to work within the European Union and within NATO in pushing further to keep Europe together, because this is the added pressure that's now coming from that first round of French elections. It will be more difficult to have French President Emmanuel Macron completely on their side, not because he thinks otherwise, but because France will become more difficult for him to govern, most likely. And here there's now more of an emphasis on the German-Polish axis rather than the Weimar Triangle, which includes France.
Michaela, thank you so much. Our chief political editor, Michaela Kufner.